is Behind the Bikini, and we are on episode number 70. We've already been having a very spirited discussion before we got on here. So, woo, we're woo-sawing right now. Woo-sawing.
Good energy in it. Good
Yeah.
energy in, bad energy out.
That's right, exactly. Sometimes you just need to just word vomit. That's kind of basically what we just did. So, anyway,
We feel
if
better.
you, yes. So now we're good. We're good to go with the podcast number 70. We are going to wrap up the Arnold and the whole experience and how we feel now and what's going on with our lives at this point and all that kind of fun stuff going through this because it was a crazy weekend. But before we do that, like, comment, subscribe, share, push the buttons wherever they are. Oh, so it's been a week. It's
Yes.
been a week since the Arnold, so it's crazy when you sit back and start thinking about how fast time freaking flies. It's crazy. This
Yeah,
time,
wow. Today's already Thursday. Yeah.
yeah, this
Wow.
time last week I was on the flight up there. You were already there.
Starting
It
all
just
the
goes,
activities. Yeah.
uh it just goes by in a blink. I mean, that's why we talked about this at the live podcast. It's like you have to take in everything, all the whole experience, because it literally goes by so quickly. So, um, before we get into that and before we go into all of our thoughts and things like that from the show, where are you at now, physically, mentally? What are you planning? Are you reversing out? What are your plans now?
Processing, so
Oh,
mentally still processing everything. I've kind of, I do this after shows. I try to kind of take a step back from like social media, all the things, just to kind of give back to all the people that are around me, support me. Definitely Drew, him and I have been just trying to take some time this week just to connect. And we did a really nice dinner on Monday night. We've been going to the gym together this week, and it's just been so nice just to kind of feel human again for a second, catch up on life, work, relationships, things like that. And then obviously by the end of this week, I'll kind of get back into athlete mode. But still processing. We did get our feedback. Would you like me to go into that kind of
yeah, go for
right
it.
out the gate? Awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Jamie's obviously been on lots of calls. It was a very large judging panel. I don't know if you know how many. I think it was anywhere between I think it was like 8 of them. It was a really long table.
Well, even with that, like there, even if the judges weren't at the table, there were judges sitting behind them. Like I was in the second row for prejudging and for finals too. I was in the second row behind the judges. So even the judges that were at the table, there was like three, four more sitting behind them because they were swapping in and out for the divisions and stuff like that. So
Okay.
the entire like major panel, like the major head judges that you hear about being promoted at shows, all of them were there, every single
Yep.
one of them. So
Yeah, so Jamie's been on call, trying to get every single one of their feedbacks, and it's been very, very consistent with all of us. So feedback was, positives. They absolutely were blown away by the improvements that I made since the Olympia. They said, perfect amount of muscle, no more than that, just contain it. They loved my posing and presentation, which I worked extremely hard on. So I'm so glad that they were able to see that. They just said that the confidence was amazing. The flow was great. Just continue to work on the walk to the back, which we all know is so
mhm,
difficult. But it
mhm.
was a lot better. And I was really happy with my presentation as well. And then obviously we can all see from the photos if kind of have an eye, I was too hard, way too
Mhm.
hard. And the sad part about this is kind of what I'm processing, emotionally, is there's just some things as an athlete that you cannot control.
Right.
And the Friday prior to peak week or Arnold week, I ended up getting a flu, a really nasty flu. And I don't really like to talk about when I'm sick, especially going into a show, because I just don't like that to be like an excuse, for
Right.
anything, and obviously too, like there's a lot of days between Friday to, the following Saturday. So but I was in bed super, super sick all weekend. I mean, literally, like, couldn't even keep my eyes open. Like, the fatigue was so hard, or a lot. I was able on Monday morning to, I felt like 85% better. And I got up and I was holding a lot of water.
Mm.
And so this is the hard part. This is my first show of the year. This was my first peak with this amount of muscle and, this improved package. And then you have the added component of being sick. So
Mhm.
you don't know at that point what's water, what's fat, what is the look going to be. So Monday I checked in with Jamie and we added some more cardio in and we dropped food to try to tighten up a bit. But Tuesday morning, I woke up and we looked about the same. So what she said was, all right, we're going to do the same thing as yesterday, keep cardio in, we're going to keep food on the lower side, and I want you to go get a lymphatic drainage massage. So I went in to Kristen Tuesday night. She got me in, 911'd her, and she did too good of a job. I woke up on Wednesday, which was a travel day, and I was down a little bit of weight, but still holding a little bit of water. And then come Thursday morning when I woke up, I think I dropped about 4.5 pounds from travel, the lymphatic massage. And at that point, I was really lean. Yeah. So we started to feed. We started to feed on Thursday. And, you know, we kind of talked about this on our live when I was at the Arnold. Thursday's crazy. You're on your feet all day long with media, your sponsorship things. Jamie was literally checking me after every single meal. So it was like a lot of, all right, you know, go do your thing, go eat a meal, come back and see me in an hour. So I'd have to run down to my room, change, go back and see her, go back to my room, change, go back to the expo. So just on my feet all day long. Friday morning, we woke up, had about the same look, you know, did the best we can. But at that point, you know, the metabolism is just firing because you're starting to feed it. So it was just a game of, you know, cat and mouse. I knew at that point it was not going to be able to be the look that we needed to bring. I was mentally sound about that. Going to bed on Friday night, I went to bed the same weight that I woke up with that morning after all that food. So I knew I was going to, you know, wake up and be super tight. So I'm sad because it was such a great prep. It was an amazing prep. I literally, we'll be coming out with a YouTube, and I was foam rolling on Monday when I finally got back in the gym, and I just started crying. And Nikki's like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "This is not the way I wanted to finish this. Like, I wanted to finish it at 100%, the way the entire prep had gone." And I just knew in my heart that it wasn't gonna be the package, you know? So now the positives are, that's great feedback, right? So I can definitely soften up when I have control over the physique. So we have really great feedback. Like, we're not too big. Like, we don't need to grow anymore. This is the first time I've ever been told, like, she's good. Like, she delivered on all the feedback. Her upper glutes are good. Her tie-ins are good. Just soften her up and she's going to be perfect. I also need to get control over my vascularity. This is something genetically that I have an issue with. Literally, all of us were backstage and we were talking about, like, they were talking about my vascularity, and all the girls were pulling their skin, and I have really thin skin compared to some of these girls. Like, my skin is like paper thin. And it's just really hard, you know, when you're this lean, and I'm also ghost white 99% of the time. So like, I literally look
to the choir right now. Same.
So, you know, it's just something we're playing with. And again, this is something I've never had to do before. Like, we were peaking on fats and really low carbs and, like, you know, manipulating sodium and things like that. We've never had to do that with me. It's always a game of, like, how much carbs can we get in? How much sodium and water can we get in to fill her out and get those tie-ins popped? No matter how, you know, what we did, my tie-ins were there, but we were just trying to figure all this. So it's easy changes, but it's changes that have to be done. And I totally understand my placing. Like, I see it. I'm not upset about that. Like, I get it. I totally get it. That was not bikini, as far as like the conditioning and the vascularity. But the shape is there, and that is bikini, you know, and it's just difficult because of course I wanted to show my best on the Arnold stage, but I'm super proud. I'm insanely proud of everything. I'm proud of my work ethic. This was the first time that Drew has ever said, which, if you know Drew, he is extremely hard on me. He loves me and he pushes me, but he is the number one person that will tell me, like, hey, you didn't do this. He was like, Jay, you did everything. You literally nailed it, and this was our fault. We didn't nail the peak, and, you know, and being sick and whatnot. Like, you literally did everything you needed to do. So that to me is the win. Knowing that I was seen and it was 100%, and it was my very first prep where I gave it literally my heart and soul. And I know that when we get it right and we have full control, it's going to be really beautiful.
Yeah. Well, you know, and that's the thing. It's like, when you stepped out on stage, the first thing I saw when you guys were in the initial comparisons, I was like, oh my God, her glutes are ridiculous in comparison, like your whole physique in comparison to where you were at the Olympia. It's almost like you were just like, and I know you were too conditioned at the show, but it was almost like you were deflated at the Olympia versus now you're not, you know, you've got all that pop everywhere, you know? So, but the hardness, it was very clear that you're hard. You know what I mean? It just is what it is. And when everybody came out, there were basically two really distinct looks between the girls on stage. Either the girls that were too hard or the girls that were too soft. There was like no in between, right? So I was like, well, when they pull out that first call out, start moving them around, we're gonna know which direction they're going. And clearly, they were going in the more soft direction versus the hard direction. So I was like, okay, we got it. We understand where we're at. So as far as the judging and how it went, I agreed with how they placed everything. And you're right. I mean, when that's similar to what happened with me in Hawaii, because I knew like I put everything into that prep, and then I got there and my period freaking showed up and I blow up 6 pounds. You know what I mean? Like it's like, okay, like this sucks. You know, everything about it sucks because you did everything you possibly could do to bring your best possible package, and you feel like you're doing that, and all of a sudden something completely out of and even with you had the no hugging rule and everything too, right? So like getting sick, it's like holy shit, like I literally tried to not have this happen. You know what I mean? And you're
And I
like,
was
of course,
devastated. Like I
yeah,
did, like, and that's what I'm saying. Like I literally did everything, to make sure I did not get sick. And
yeah,
it's just those things happen. You go to the gym, you wash your hands, you wash the equipment. Like I literally did everything. But
yep,
when you get, and it was nasty. I mean, our entire crew got it. Drew
yeah,
ended up getting it. Nikki ended, like, it is a nasty flu, and it literally is to the T, to the day, the same flu. So it
yeah,
just sucks.
yeah,
But again, like, if it was going to happen, I'm glad I was the one that got it first. Like, could you imagine, like, getting that on Wednesday going into the show? Like, I can say with confidence, I don't know if I would have been able to step on stage with how heavy the fatigue was. Like, it was nasty.
yeah.
It just felt awful. So if it was going to happen, it happened the way it did. I'm glad it did.
Well, and at the end of the day, too, like one of the things you can take home is I did everything right, right? There were some other competitors on stage that day that you could see they just started changing things when they didn't need to change it. You know what I mean? So it's like that was in their control and they fucked up what was in their control. This was not in your control.
Yeah.
You know, everything that you had in your control, you did.
Yeah.
So you didn't do anything crazy. You didn't go way out of your box. You didn't try to overcorrect things or anything like that. You just tried to manage what you had to manage, and that's all you can do. You know, that's all you can do at the end of the day. And it's yeah, it's difficult, but then that's also why we stay so addicted to the sport too. It's like because like you're like I know I have something better in me than what you saw.
Yeah.
So
And
now you're like, okay, now I got to get back on stage, right?
and we are.
Yeah.
So I told you guys, I think one of our like last like official podcasts, I do have a contract signed for Pittsburgh Pro,
Mhm.
but we need to practice peaking. This
Yeah.
is a new body, and again, like we're really heavy relying on fats right now to help with softening up
Mhm.
and getting rid of the vascularity. So we do want
I
to
had to do the
try.
same thing. I had to do the same
Yeah.
thing in California. It was fats. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm okay with it mentally, like literally, like I understand, and that's the thing too. People were saying, like in my corner, they're like, this must be so hard for you because you're also a coach. Like you kind
Yeah.
of like know too much in a way. So it's like, they're like, how do you deal with that? I'm like, I just let Jamie do her thing. Like, that's why
Yep.
that's why Jamie's my coach. Like, I'm not here to coach myself. So I'm okay with it. Like, I see it. I know I need to be softer. Like, I know it's going to be very weird for me and odd for me, but that's why we want to practice peaking before one of the larger shows. So
Mhm.
we decided last night that we are going to be doing Charlotte. So
Okay.
I am 37 days out. So
Okay.
I'm going to go and again, like no expectations. I'm going just to practice peaking, like,
Yeah.
get on stage a couple of times. I want to continue to really work on my posing. And then from there, we might do girl power a couple weekends later, depending on how Charlotte goes and whatnot, or if we nail it, then we don't have to. And then for sure, obviously showing up to Pittsburgh. So that's kind of our tentative plan right now. And I'm excited. I'm excited because I don't really feel like I'm prepping anymore.
Yeah.
I have no cardio. I just have a step count. We're eating. I feel great. I just went for labs this morning, just to make sure, everything looks okay thyroid wise and things like that. So we have lots of things that we can play with. It's kind of exciting. And this is, the cool part of bodybuilding is you build the physique, and then now like the science behind what's it going to take to bring this perfect look. And that's where
Right.
Jamie and I had a conversation before, talking about going into these shows. She was like, it might take us a few times to nail the peak, so I need you to be okay with not being in those top spots if we don't nail the peak. And I was like, that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm good with that. And again, like, that's where I appreciate Jamie, and I know you do too, about always protecting our mindset, being very realistic with us, like, never overhyping us up, always telling us what the goal is and what the focus is. And it's my job as an athlete to make sure I understand that. And then so when I show up at Charlotte, if it goes my way, great. And if it doesn't, cool. Just use it as a data point and keep showing up.
Well, at this point, you don't have to qualify for the Olympia. So this is just about playing with things and seeing what works, what doesn't, understanding how you feel, taking really good notes, all those kinds of things. So it was funny. I saw, we're going to get into this in a little bit, but I saw a comment on Reddit at one point where somebody mentioned with peeking into a show, at this point, all the work's done and you just kind of have to ride into the show. You don't really need a coach to go into the last week. Bullshit. I'm sorry, bullshit. I know just from talking to you guys, from talking to Jamie and talking to other athletes that were there and things like that, you all were checking in with her fucking 10 times a day. You know what I mean? Like it is touch and go in those last few days, especially when we're talking about the best bodies in our sport. It really is. Like it's not a okay, let's just wake up and drink our water and eat our food. It's not like that at all. It's not like that at all. It doesn't work like that. And like I know even when when I've peaked my pro athletes too, it's like I want to see you after you eat this meal, I want to see you before you eat this meal, I want to see you after you pose a little bit, I want to see you when you do this, because again, I'm collecting data to know how to dial them in better. You know what I mean? Like when you were talking about MTC and things like that, okay, we have a little bit more leniency. There's not, but that's also because the physiques aren't as developed. Now the physiques are really super developed. And a perfect example of that too is looking at the men's open. So did you watch any of the show, or did you just kind of, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the place where Amy was actually mentioning is the holding room didn't have a TV there, and I guess they
Oh,
had last
okay.
year. So the
Okay.
TV you didn't get to until you got to the
Yeah.
pump up room, which we weren't there until like 20 minutes before we went on stage. So no, I wasn't. I
Okay.
saw them backstage though.
Yeah. Well, I was in the media pit. So like, for the men's open, they only have finals, like stage. Like they have prejudging and finals on the final stage. They don't perform the expo, which is a whole other ball game that we talk about too, with lighting
Yeah,
and
we need
distance
to
from the
talk about that
judges
for
and all that
sure.
kind of stuff. Yes. So, but it comes down to like you're sitting there and you can literally see the physiques changing as they're moving. Like it was down to, Samson and Derek and that first night on prejudging on Friday. Samson was fading, like you could see it. And I'm sitting there with one of the guys that does media for RX Muscle. We're sitting there talking and we're like, what? There's just something off. And I was like, he's not, I'm like, he's dry. Like there's nothing popping. His whole front, his chest, his stomach, everything was dry. And then they flipped through some more comparisons. I saw Samson walk off stage when he came back out, he had more oil on. Right. So all of a sudden now he's starting to pop a little bit more. Those little things, like I'm sure his coach was probably in the audience and being like, you need to go get more glaze, whatever it might be. As soon as he came back out, he was shiny again and he was popping a little bit more. Now, again, it wasn't enough. His conditioning wasn't quite there, all that kind of stuff. But those little teeny tiny details make such a huge difference. People don't understand how much of a difference it makes. And you can literally see physiques changing while they're on stage. I said this on my live with Vanya when Vanya first came out for prejudging. I was like, there's just something off. I'm like, I don't know what it is. Like, she's just not popping yet. Then she started going through comparisons, and I'm like, oh my god! All of a sudden, her body starts coming to life.
Vanya
And you
always
can
does that. She always
always,
gets better from
always.
the second or hill at the stage till at the end of prejudging. She always gets better as she poses.
Yes. And I don't know what it is because not everybody's like that, but that's just how she is. And all of a sudden, she just started taking on a life of her own with her physique. And it was with, I don't know, maybe it's just moving the food through her system or whatever it was as she was on stage. But all of a sudden, I'm like, oh my God, she looks so much better. Like it was a drastic difference from her individual presentation to the end of call outs. And some people do that the opposite way.
Yeah.
Some people look better when they come out for their individual and worse by the time you get to the end. Like again, I was just talking about Samson. Samson looked worse as he posed on Friday. They came back on Saturday and it was a different story there. But, again, going back to this is where this peaking makes such a difference. And it's stuff you cannot control. You're on stage. Like, what are you going to do? There's nothing else you can do at that point other than walk off stage and get more glaze. You know what I mean? Like, that's all you can do at that point, and you just got to
To
perform.
your point, like you're spot on because
Yeah.
obviously backstage, as the girls we were talking about when they brought back out that top 3 comparison, they worked them. So let's
Yes.
talk about that for a second. So
Hmm.
prejudging stage was very similar to Olympia, where it's in the middle of an expo. And I was warned by Amy, thank God, that she was like, when you walk out, the judges are right on the stage. I was like, what do you mean? She's like the table is butted up against. So when
Yes.
you hit that front pose in that box, they're
Yes.
going to be right there. So they are so close to you. I have never had a judging panel this close to me. So also to consider the lights, because it's such a smaller stage, are right on top of you. So it is very hot. It's
Yes.
very, very hot. So for me, I know that one of the things that one of the judges said was the disadvantage to Jordan and how hard she was how close we were. We
Yeah,
could see
absolutely.
everything. If we were a few feet back from her, she probably would have moved up a couple of spots because we wouldn't have
Yeah.
been able to see everything. She would have been just as hard, but we wouldn't have been able to see everything. They also mentioned if she brought that same look to prejudging on the night show stage with different lighting, they're much farther back, like
Yes.
significantly farther back in finals. I couldn't even find them in finals until I was
Yep.
on the diagonal. They were like the placing might have been a lot different. So
Yeah.
that all plays. Not to say that my placing wasn't where it should. I completely agree with it, but you guys have to consider that. Now, going with what
Yep.
you're saying about the top three, those girls were hot and they worked them. So,
Yes.
some of the feedback from those top three girls was like they weren't able to hold their core and they were kind of like
Yes.
unsure of their poses. They were exhausted. And you have
Yep.
to think when we're standing on the diagonal too, we're still getting that direct light on the stage. We're all hot. Like, I don't know if you guys saw, like, some of us were like doing this, like, we were
Yeah.
dripping in sweat when we came off stage. And I
Yep.
know for me too, like when I showed up to prejudging, my tan was a little off.
Mm-hmm.
So Protan ended up doing another layer of top foam on me, and I was too dark when I came
Yeah.
out for prejudging. So between prejudging and finals, I rinsed, went back, and it was perfect. So these are all the little things that really matter, when it
Absolutely.
comes to, and honestly, like prejudging, the decision is basically made. I do think that they made a couple of like tiny switches, but nothing like that was, crazy between like Vanya won, I'm pretty sure. So it's
Yeah.
just it's those are the things that people don't hear, think about, see. The photos online, in my opinion, look, for some people a little off of what was,
Agreed.
true in person. So
Yep.
it's just hard, and people, I get it. People are, making estimations and things based on what they see, but just remember, like, live streams and photos can make people look harder, can make people look softer than they actually were. Like, you really
Yeah.
don't know until you're there and you're seeing it in person.
Well, and again, I was sitting right behind the judges, and this was something I noticed more so in wellness than I did in bikini. But like the tans were a mess on some of the girls. The skin was a mess on some of the girls. Like there was one girl in wellness. You could literally see, and I hate to say it, you could literally see every single pimple on her ass. I mean, you could see it like right there in front of your face. And I was 5 feet behind the judges, so they were even closer than me. You know what I mean? So it's like they even saw it closer than that. That was something I said about Issa and wellness too, because her tan in her midsection was dripping, so she was hot. You know what I mean? It was muddy, and I said that I was like, she needs to go rinse between prejudging and finals and just redo that. You know what I mean? I'm sure that affected her score because Eduarda's tan was perfect and Issa's was not. And when you're this close, that stuff matters. That stuff makes a
Literally.
difference.
Yeah, literally, like I
So
set that first front post and prejudging, and I had to go like this to see the, like, look down
yeah,
to see the
just see the
judges. Like,
judges.
that's how close they were.
Yeah, yeah. There was a. I think Greg said this. I didn't hear this, but he said that the judges were actually told to hide their score sheets
Yeah, they were
because you
doing
got you
this.
guys yeah because you guys were so close to them that
Yeah,
you could actually read what was on their score sheets.
yeah, they looked like they were in like kindergarten, like
Yeah,
hiding
isn't that
their.
crazy?
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm so thankful that Amy gave me that heads up right before we went out, because
Yeah,
it was a little shocking to the other
yeah.
girls. They came and they're like, "Oh my god, they're right there," and I'm like, "Yeah, like it
That's how
is.
I
It's
felt.
jarring."
I felt like that and this is, they don't even sit up against the stage at the New York Pro, but that's how I felt the New York Pro. I felt like I was on top of the judges. Like
Yes.
you're right there. It's like there's no space. None.
Make
It's like,
sure
oh
that
my
suit
God.
is wide.
Yeah. I'm like, this is why I like expo stages usually, because usually the judges are way further back than the normal like convention centers, or sorry, like expo like halls and like hotels and stuff like that. Usually those are a little bit more intimate, but this particular one, no, because
I
again they
think
set it
they
up a little bit
prefer it
differently.
too. And I
Yeah,
think you could say that as a
yeah,
judge, right? Like, you
yeah.
don't want to, like, nobody wants to be the first row in the movie theater, right?
Right,
The best thing
right,
is to be a few rows
exactly.
back, so you're
Yeah,
not. So
yeah.
I think they prefer that too. And I definitely think that should be feedback, obviously, that they, should share for next year. But
Because
and then
again,
again,
when we're talking about that stuff too, it's like it's a comparison game, so you need to be back far enough so you can see everybody
the
against each
girls.
other.
And then
not
again,
just up on one girl.
right. And that's why the call outs, I think, were on the smaller side too, because if you had,
Yes.
6 to 8 of us, on that wide, like you can't really see it. So
Yes.
all of these things played such a big, role. And then you have to think too, at finals, you're getting the complete opposite. So just
Hmm.
so you guys are aware, this is something that was shocking to me. I came out for finals and I go to hit my front pose and I can't see the judges at all. They're kind of like in the first half of the rows. So like you just have like normal row of people, normal row. And I'm like looking, I couldn't find them. So I
Yeah.
do my individual and I didn't find them until I was on the diagonal and then I saw some lights. So the lights were for the scorecards, and then like, oh, there they are. And they were literally like in the middle of the room. So they're getting a completely different angle now, a completely
Yes.
different stage, a completely different light setup in finals.
Yep.
So again, like I don't want to be a judge. Like I don't know how they do it. Like their
Yeah.
job must be so incredibly difficult. They're doing the best they can with what they got. But those are all completely different factors you have to consider between morning show, night show. If, you're on the morning stage in the expo. That's why I think they don't do it too for the big bodybuilders, like getting that very consistent
I was
look.
just about to say that they actually have a advantage because they're under the same lights and same
Right.
conditions. So
Right.
back in the day, that Patil Grand where Finals was held is where prejudging used to be. They
Okay.
used to have everybody on that stage, but then they moved it over to the Expo, which I prefer the Expo venue because you've just got so many more people there. Like when you were in the Patil Grand, like you had to buy a separate ticket to go to prejudging, so you would have barely anybody in there. You know what I mean? So it was during the day, during the expo, all of that. So it was like, this is just pointless, right? So they moved everybody over to the expo, which I prefer. But like I said, when it comes to peaking, the bodybuilders actually have an advantage because it's the same stage and same lights. So at least they know they're going to be under the same conditions the following night when they come back.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
that
it's up.
stage was beautiful. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, like that's one of the things I was most scared about, but
Yeah.
what a feeling. Like standing
Hmm.
there, seeing the arch backstage and you're, about to go underneath it and then you just turn that corner and it was a moment, like a moment I want to chase forever. Like so cool to see the magnitude of people. Like I literally was just looking out into the crowd. Like there was, the higher one and then there was, back in the back and it was just this sea of people and the sea of energy. It was amazing. Like it's
I
something.
love when shows have that opening in the back where you come straight down versus
Me
coming
too.
in from the sides.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about it, but it just feels more like, I don't know. I don't know. It's just more special. I don't know how
It
else to
is.
describe it, but it is
Yeah.
like, that's how it was in Japan. So it really was. It was like all of a sudden you are the center of attention,
Yeah.
and you don't have that big long walk to come in from the side in order to get there. You know what I mean? It's just great. Like, so and I felt like the production went so smooth this year.
Oh, it was
So
great.
smooth. Like, I've been going to the Arnold since 2010. I've been there for every year, and there was something about this year that just everything moved like clockwork,
It was
like
perfect.
clockwork. Last year was not like that at all.
Oh,
Just gonna
really?
say,
Well, they
last year
adjusted
was
it.
not like
Yeah,
that.
like we were backstage and like, it's very cool because they escort you everywhere. I mean, if you have to
Yeah,
go to the bathroom, you have someone with you. They're stopping people. Like it's very cool. And they make sure that you are where you need to be. But in the backstage area, the communication was amazing. Hey girls,
yeah.
we're coming to get you in 30 minutes. Hey girls, we're coming to get you in 15, 10, 5, 1 minute. We're moving. And so we
Yes.
had time to prepare and we knew they were coming. Have you ever been at a show before and they're like, hey girls, we're coming to get you in 10 minutes. And 20 minutes later, you're like, are we going? Are
Yeah.
we not? But like they were on it. So we felt super supported all weekend. They were on it. And the backstage area is very cool. You start in one room, then you go to the tanning room. You're in the tanning room. They're like, all right, you guys are all in here because there's only 10 of us. Get your tanning done. Then we're gonna move you to the next room in 10 minutes. 10 minutes, they would
Mhm.
come back. We move to the pump up room, go from the pump up backstage. And it was on it. When you finally got backstage, there was a TV up and it told you exactly what was next. So
Yeah.
this speech, the Jordan's next, and like people on the screen. So you always knew where you were at. They were getting a little upset with us, upset, but we were all like bawling for Angelica, like all
Oh
of
yeah.
us when
She
she
just
took the
posted a
heels off.
video on that. She just posted a video from her walking off stage from after her retirement speech. She posted that on her Instagram
Yeah.
today. I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, we were all like crying. They were like, "You guys need to go." We were like, "We need a second. We're celebrating her." And they were all crying too. There was not a dry eye,
Yeah.
backstage from production to Freddie, doing the DJ. Like it like guilt goes back there. Like everybody was just like in awe.
Yeah.
It was really special too to be there, for
Yeah.
that, because Angelica has, given so much to the sport, like to share that stage with her for the last time as a teammate, a fellow FBF coach, it was really, really special. And the camaraderie backstage was super cool too. Like all 10
Yeah.
of us, like really do respect each other. And, we all really did bring our best, especially the Olympians. Like I can say like all of us improved, from the Olympia, which is cool. It makes it
Yeah.
exciting,
Yeah.
like, and that's what we were all saying. Like, we were all like looking at each other, like going to the show. I'm like, holy shit, like all of us improved, So
Hmm.
it's going to be a fun season. It's going to be a really, really fun season. We don't know who's competing, who's not. Like, it's the next kind of 10 weeks too. I think a lot of these big pros are going to come out. Still a lot of people need to get qualified for the Olympia too, so
Yeah.
these pro shows the next first half of the season is going to be
It's gonna be
really
tough.
cool and
Yeah.
exciting. Yeah,
Well, to go back to the production aspect of it too. So all of those things that you mentioned, they just seem like they would be common sense. You know what I mean? But
sure.
they just don't exist in a lot of these shows. Brian Powers is the actual promoter of the Arnold, right?
Yes.
So people don't realize when it comes to the Arnold, Arnold's name is on it. Yes, he has a say and stuff that happens, but at the end of the day, he's not the one running the show. He's the face, he's the guy that's perpetuated the show because of his popularity and his stardom and all that kind of stuff. So Brian Powers is actually the one that promotes the show. And he comes from a corporate background. He does not come from bodybuilding.
Yeah.
So he comes at this from a perspective of real big business, right? So that's the biggest difference when we're talking about this level of production versus what we see at a lot of different shows in our industry. And I said something to him. I said, thank you so much for your level of professionalism. Like I just thought the level of professionalism and polish this year was like next level. This is one of the reasons why I like the Arnold as much as I do in comparison to some of the other shows, because they always do have a little bit of a higher standard. They just do. But this year, like I just felt like the respect for the women was top. Like the whole thing that they did for Angelica, I have never seen a retirement speech or moment or anything like that ever in our sport. And it was phenomenal. Like I was sitting there, like I'm gonna get choked up as I'm sitting here. But I'm like,
Somebody's
finally we get the respect.
yeah,
Finally.
yeah,
Like,
I agree. Yeah, yeah, and it felt that way too. Like coming up to it, they were all coming up to Angelica backstage, all the expediters thanking her, for her love and respect over the years. And what every single one of us as athletes, I know, went up to her and was like, thank you for the impact you've made on
yes,
me, or how you've
yes,
touched my life. And it was, and I so appreciated them too taking the moment, to recognize her, because it's a long time coming, and I
yeah,
agree with you, previous years that might not have been a thing.
that's right.
So, to
That's right.
be I think it's a really good step in the right direction, a really positive
Absolutely.
momentum. I think that bikini is starting to, get the recognition, all women's divisions too, that we
Yeah.
deserve, and we work just as hard. Even the camaraderie with like the guys backstage,
Yeah.
like, yeah, you guys are looking, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
everybody was just there to really support each other and lift each other up. And at the end of the day, this is what I kept reminding myself. Like I was one of 10 athletes that were invited to this show.
That's
Like it
right.
is, we all deserve to be there,
That's right.
and we all deserve that respect from each other. And yeah, it was special. It was really
It
special.
was, and like I said, I mean, we know because we're behind the scenes. We know, how much we have to fight for this stuff sometimes. So, again, going back to it's just nice to see that actually happen finally. And, Angelica is one of those people that no, if you've ever met her in real life, like she is the most positive, bright light you've ever seen, right? Like she remembers everything about everyone she's ever met. So if you have ever met her in person, she'll remember that particular thing or whatever you guys talked about or whatever, that kind of thing. She has inspired people for ever, and she's going to continue to do that, and we need more women that are willing to do that, willing to put themselves out there like that, because this and we'll go into this physique wise. This was not her best package. This was not her best look. This was not her best placing by any stretch of the imagination, but it was by far one of the most impactful things that she's probably done in her career, even beyond winning Olympias, and that's saying something.
Yeah, and she was telling us in the room, sometime over the weekend. She's like, this is why I wanted to end my career here.
Yeah.
It's a smaller show, it's a smaller stage. I wanted it to be intimate.
Yep.
Her focus that weekend was on the fans
That's right.
and being with her sponsors and the people that have supported her and be in her corner. That's what was important to her this
That's right.
weekend. It wasn't the placing. It wasn't about bringing, the best physique. Like, she had a burger and fries on Friday night because she wasn't able to eat all of her food because she had so many people that she was one of the last ones to leave the meet and greet. She had
Yeah.
a line out the door. Like, she's one of those
Yeah.
athletes that stays till
That's
every
why I didn't
single
interview her,
person.
because she was the only person that had a line out the door, and I wanted to interview her so bad, but I also didn't want to cut off all those people waiting for her because everybody already left and she was still there.
Yeah.
So I was like, listen, I'm gonna let you do your thing with your fans. Like, we'll talk later.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
And that's why she's one of the best Miss Bikini
yeah,
Olympias. That's
absolutely.
it's not about the win. It's about how you impact the sport
Right.
after the win. And how
That's
many
right.
years after the win, right? Like,
Yeah.
how many do we see that win and then there's not really anything that comes about it? Like, to me, like, Miss Bikini Olympia is somebody that gives back to the sport tenfold of what it gave to them. And Angelica's done that time and time again.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's just again, going back to, it was a really cool moment. It was really it was just nice to see that they recognized the women the way that they did. Because we see that a lot with the men's side of the sport. We don't see that a lot with the women's side of the sport. So, it's a positive movement in the right direction in my opinion. So I thought that was really good. I thought that was really good.
I'm glad
So
that we touched on that for sure.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that was because that was a question too, because people were asking, why she placed the way she did. But like you said, I mean, she was just running around like crazy. Like, again, going back to what you were saying about managing expectations, Jamie, as her coach, has to manage the expectations of, yes, we want to put a great package for you on stage, but at the same time, we understand this is your last hurrah, and you want to go out there and you want to, like you said, impact your fans and stuff like that have been there for you this whole time, so it's trying to manage those, again, expectations. I think Angelica was under no disillusions that she wasn't going to come into the show and win it. So she's got to find her win the right way, which is being with her fans and her sponsors and the people that supported her.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is, as a top athlete, when you're peaking into a show, like, you can't be running around the expo for hours. Like, Greg literally came with me on Friday when I had to go to the expo for 2 hours to
Yeah.
do my sponsorship responsibilities, and he literally stood there and he was like, Jay, that's it, we're
You gotta
done.
go.
Like, you need to
Yeah.
go. So and I would have stayed for another 2 hours. I was having fun, right? But he was like,
Yeah.
you're burnt. Remember, what's the goal? We're burning through
Yeah. What are
food.
we here
So
for?
I needed a babysitter. I'm glad that he came with me.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, as a top athlete, as much as you want to be there and you want to be in the mix, like, that's not what you're there for. Unfortunately, you have a job, like, you're a professional.
Right.
You know what I mean? So she and again, Angelica was very understanding of that, right? Like,
Yeah.
just like you're saying, like, was in this delusional world that, like, she was going in and winning the whole thing. She was there to hang out with her friends
Yep.
and give back to the sport, and honestly brought a great package.
Yeah, she sure did.
Yeah,
She sure did.
yeah. I mean, it's amazing. Like,
Yeah.
it's just, I can't believe I was a part of her last one. So,
Yeah. It's awesome. And just being able to be a part of it. It's really cool. So
yeah.
that actually brought up another point. So I I mentioned several times in my stories that I hate how packed these expos get. You were there on Friday. Did you go down at all on Saturday and like walk around at all? Did you go on Sunday, walk around at all? Did you experience any of that?
Yeah, I was there for a few hours on Friday, and then I went down for, obviously, they escorted us into prejudging on
Right.
Saturday. I
Right.
wish they escorted us out because it was really difficult to get out. Yeah, wow, like, that's a lot of people.
That was the most packed I have ever seen that expo ever.
They told us that in the athletes meeting that ticket sales for the expo were more than double than last year, and they were
Yeah.
expecting the same on the live stream. They were saying, like, with the live stream last year, they had about like 400,000. They were expecting over 1 million, like, live, and then after, like, replays and stuff, about 2 million on the
Yeah.
not the pay-per-view, the live stream. So
Yeah.
and
Well, the
that, you're
biggest
thinking that in the back of your head too, when you're on that stage. You're like, holy
Oh, yeah.
2 million people are gonna watch this.
Right. Well, the
Yeah.
biggest thing, again, going back to what the Arnold does over some other shows, is they brought in big mainstream brands. Like, they had Red Bull as one of the sponsors. Like, that's crazy. They had influencers that bring millions of people. If you went and saw the Young LA booth, the Young LA booth was half the expo.
It was a store.
It was
a
enormous.
little
It was a
in
gym.
there.
It was like they had everything over there. The line to get into that booth, I didn't wait in it. Clearly, I'm not a line person, but the line to get in that booth, probably had to wait an hour just to get to the booth. Like it was crazy,
I know, like we were
fucking
walking
crazy.
around. I'm like, what is this line for? And then all of a sudden I look and I'm like, that's a store
Yeah,
in an
yeah.
expo right now. Like it was
They had
insane.
freaking like monkey bars and pull ups and lift. Oh my God, it was crazy.
It
It
was
was
crazy.
crazy. But again, this is how they got more people there because when you bring like influencers and stuff in, that brings in the younger crowd. So another thing that I noticed walking around was most people in there were like 20-year-olds.
Yeah,
Like they were
a young
young.
crowd.
Yeah. Because they were
And this
all
is good. This
influencers.
is good for our sport. Like
Exactly.
I know people don't.
Exactly.
I have the same mind frame as you. I was like, there's so many young people here. Like this is the future of bodybuilding right here.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. That's where and I said this too. I was like, I hope promoters take notes because this is how you bring this to a new audience. This is how you tie it in with something that they already feel like is popular, and then that's how you bring them into bodybuilding. Again, going back to why we have fit model now. That look, that mainstream look is popular already. Bring it to bodybuilding because that's going to influence people to get into bodybuilding. Like it's really simple math right here. You know what I mean? So
this is something Aaron Banks and I were talking about. We saw each other at the airport going to the Arnold, and he is pretty confident that they're going to be adding in something like fit model for the men's
oh yeah.
division, like a
Yeah.
starter division. He's like it's bound to happen. Like
Yeah.
not maybe not right now, but within the next couple of years. So that will be good too for the male
Right.
side of things.
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. And it needs to happen because otherwise, again, the Arnold was a perfect example of how you can reach younger crowds with this sport.
yeah,
You absolutely can. You just have to tap into what they're into.
yeah.
You have to tap into what's already popular with them. So then you can pull them in and they can get a taste of it and say, oh, I want more.
Correct.
You know, it's something that has proven right for the test of time. And like for some reason I don't understand why like some of the older people in our sport just don't want to do that. Like it just blows my mind. So thankfully, we have some movers and shakers in our industry that are willing to put that out there so we can see the results. I mean, again, I think I was at the seminar on Sunday and I think that Arnold said that the ticket sales were up 20, either 20 or 25% from the year before. And it was the biggest one that they've ever had. You know, and there's a reason for that. It's not all because of bodybuilding. It's not all because of bodybuilding, but it's because they reached out to these other subsets, these other people that they're like, okay, this is what they want. Let's bring it to them.
Yeah, and I mean the companies that were there too at the expo, obviously I went to a good amount of booths for networking, and a lot of them were already sold out of product by
Yep.
Friday afternoon when I was
Yep.
there. So
Yep.
it's so cool, good too, as small business owner, like they pay a lot for those booths
They
at the
sure do.
expo. So to be able to, bring your product, get good feedback, almost sell out of all of your products, and you're a small business owner like that, like what an opportunity. And getting that exposure as well. I was so proud of my sponsors, when I was going up there and they're like, we're out of everything. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's a good thing. Like, good for
Yeah.
you guys. It
Absolutely.
is. It's really cool as a small business owner to kind of see, the push and pull, if you will, to the
Yeah,
booth.
absolutely. And did you like how they were on time with everything?
Oh God, that's amazing. They were like, "Yep, you're on stage at 11." I'm like
I love it.
at 11. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, and started right at 11. Yeah, it was like I'm saying, like it was a completely different experience. Like you were 100% right. Like the athlete experience, but even from a consumer standpoint, like my friends that came, like my best friend Kelly flew, and she was like, "This is so well done." Like everybody was so happy. Like there was a time for everything. Like we knew we could do dinner. We whatever. Like it was really really nice, and just we felt very special too. Like again, like those security guards, like not only are they like taking us everywhere, but they're like hyping us up. Like they're like,
Mhm.
good luck, you look amazing. Like remember, like you're the best of it. Like they wanted,
Yeah.
to make us feel special too. It was completely different experience. It was hands down one of my favorite weekends. I think because there was no expectation, so I was literally just having fun, and it was just so easy to have fun too when everything is so well done.
Yeah.
Just perfect times for everything, and it makes it just so less stressful, and all of us felt that way. Like all of us just felt no stress.
Yeah.
So it makes a difference, and
It really
again, like
does.
it makes it easier when there's a lot less athletes. So I understand that part, but it does set the bar extremely high.
Yeah. And, you know, we need more of that.
Yeah.
You know, it always makes me laugh because Arnold is very much like he addresses the elephant in the room. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that's a good
uh,
way to say it.
and he always does. He does not shy away from it at all. He when he's on the mic, like you'll hear like subtle digs at some other shows and things like that, but he just comes right out and says it. He's like, "We're in competition with the Olympia. That's it. We're in competition with the Olympia." He's
Mic
like,
drop.
we're gonna do better, so you better do better. Like that's it. You know, and that's his thing. Like Arnold has always been like that. Like when you go watch the
Always.
old like pumping irons and stuff like that, he's always been like that. So he just doesn't shy away from saying, no, now you step up. You
Right.
know, I'm gonna step up, you're gonna step up. If I'm gonna do this, you better come bring your best because I'm just gonna kick your ass otherwise. So I
That's how
love
we
that
all get better.
aspect.
That's how
Yeah,
we
I
all
love
get
that
better.
aspect. For some people, it's like it rubs them the wrong way or whatever. I'm like, I don't give a shit. I'm like, I want you to put it out there. I want you to say we're in competition with each other. Let's make this better. That's how you get better. You don't get better if you don't have anybody pushing you. You
That's
just
correct.
don't.
Yeah.
You know, like
You could say that about all facets of life,
absolutely,
you know?
absolutely, absolutely. That's what pushes you to be better. That's what pushes anybody, any industry, anything to be better. So I freaking love it. I think it's great. He's so off the cuff, and he says some stuff that, you know, again, offends people sometimes. But hey, I'm like that too. I have to say something that offends people sometimes too. Fuck
Sean's like,
it.
I just found my person.
I know, right? I know. Arnold, we got to get together. We got to get together, right? Like, no, but it's real. Like and that's what makes people better. So let's go to that point because I wanted to ask you this question. I briefed you on this before we got on the podcast, but okay, so I just got tanning from Liquid Sunrays. I don't think a lot of people understand or realize that they have everyday tan. So this is their exotic rays, which is not competition tan, but everyday tan. So I'm going to use this tonight. Get in the shower, use my exfoliating hydro body towel, and then they have these really cool foam roller applicators that you can use for your back. Look at that. Got their little branding and everything on there too. So I'm going to use the mitt to do most of it, but then where I can't reach, that's what this is for. You just slide this little foam roller into the applicator, and this pops open like that. There we go. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this looks. So if you didn't know, Everyday Tan from Liquid Sunrays. You know, now, you know, you're getting more into the spotlight. People are recognizing you on stage a lot more and things like that. So people have opinions, right? We've talked about this on the podcast before. I don't give a shit what people think. Not everybody's gonna like me. I always say, listen, if you try to please everybody, you're gonna please nobody. So I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say. You can like it, you can hate it, whatever. That's fine. Just don't listen if you don't want to. For you, now that you're getting more of this attention, how's it affecting you mentally? How's that affecting you?
It's difficult, but it comes with the territory, right? When you
Yeah.
put yourself out there, be ready for feedback, right? In any way. I'll be honest with you guys. I've been staying off of those platforms. Just I do care what people think. I
Yep.
do a lot. I've been very vulnerable about that. The only thing that I can continue to do is listen to the judges
Yeah.
because those are the people that are awarding me. Those are the people that keep telling me how to show up. The only thing that I can say is, my feedback was perfect amount of muscle. This is not too big. This is bikini, just soften her up, so
Mhm.
a lot of, I know people are kind of, referring to, that the upper body looks too big and things like that. The only thing that I can do is continue to, listen to the judges. They
Right.
literally told me she looks perfect. She delivered on everything we asked her for from the Olympia. Just don't get any bigger. Just contain it and
Yep.
soften it. So
Yep.
that's the only thing that I can control. It's just funny because I was the one that was being hard on myself in a YouTube 3 weeks ago, and people are like, she's selling herself short, and then,
Yeah.
I don't get a great placing. Everybody's like, well, yeah, of course she did. And I'm like, it's just confusing, and it's emotional. It is emotional, but again, it is a part of the territory. And I'm just going to continue to focus on me and delivering on my feedback, which, I'll toot my own horn. I do really good with. So,
Yeah.
that's all I can do.
Yeah.
I definitely do not feel like it's too big. I don't, when you look at all of the girls backstage, we all look very, very similar size wise. And there's a lot that goes into, showing muscle in anabolic lighting,
Mhm.
how full are you, what, how much sodium's in the system, etc. So again, that's where we just got to play with the peak. There's a lot that we can do to manipulate a look.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
and it
it's
goes back
difficult.
to, like, again, people, like we talked about at the beginning of this, like, people are seeing pictures and videos. They're not seeing real life, you know? And again, they have as many opinions as they want to have, right? But it's never the critic who counts, right? At the end of the day, you got to do what you're being told to do from the people that are judging you versus those that are on the online that don't know their head from their ass when it comes to criteria. They just don't. And going back to, yeah, you got muscle on you. That's what bikini is. Bikini is muscle. Like, you're not too big. Like, another thing that people don't realize is conditioning. When you get more conditioned, you look bigger.
You look big, of course. Like if I was a little softer, I didn't have these like direct, like big
Yeah.
lines. It
Yeah.
completely manipulates the look. Like I maybe I should share my photos from Monday, Tuesday, where I considered myself a water buffalo after the
Yeah.
IV and from being sick. Like again, hindsight 2020, we probably should have just wrote out that look. But
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
it was a game time call, and I told Kristen today, my body work, I'm like, you did too good of a job, flushing out all the water and inflammation. So,
Yeah.
those things matter in terms of how big you look when all you can see is the muscle. When things
Right.
are soft, it doesn't look as drastic, so, and that's the
Yes.
thing, it's just about nailing the look.
Yep.
I think when we nail the look, it's going to change the minds of some things that people are seeing or saying, but again, like I just continue to focus on what Tyler and Sandy said. Those are the two main judges, the bikini judges at the Arnold, and they were like, she looks great, you just got to really soften her up, and that's
And that's
cool.
the key. Yeah.
Yeah.
And and also I do think that this plays into account who you're standing next to as well. Like,
Oh,
if you were on a stage with Laura Lee and with Ashley and things like that, they're a little bit have more heavily muscled than Vanya and Ashlyn are. So you're not going to look quite as big standing next to them versus them. You know what I mean? Like, it's a comparisons game at the end of the day.
Yeah,
It's
and all 10 of those
comparisons.
bodies of these bikini girls were completely different,
Correct.
height wise,
Absolutely.
amount of muscle, conditioning.
Yeah.
And you're right, Shawn. Those are some of the conversations we were talking about. Like it really depends on who's showing up that day too, and what you're comparing on, and what look they're going to go for that day.
Yeah.
We've been very clear or communicative that we think that there's a harder look that gets awarded outside of the bigger shows. They
Yeah.
go for that softer look in the bigger shows, which is why we knew that we were going to be off. But it's what are they picking that day, and what are the other bodies on stage too, and that's
Yeah.
why it's just super important to focus on you and what you're bringing, because that's the only thing that you can
Yes.
control. That's it.
Yep.
That's
And
it.
remove the noise. Remove the noise. Like you said, if that stuff bothers you mentally, you just get rid of it.
Yeah.
Just stop looking at it. Like, that, their opinion doesn't count anyway. They're not playing the game.
Right.
They're not on that stage. It doesn't matter. Doesn't fucking matter. They're not giving you your scores.
Yeah.
They're just sitting there. That's the only contribution that they have. And here's the other thing. I have to have this conversation with my clients a lot. When people come in and just, critique you and belittle you and things like that, that's more of a reflection on the insecurities that they have versus what they're thinking about you. I just had this conversation with one of my clients yesterday because she's getting tighter. She's in prep, right? She's getting tighter, and people around her are telling her she's losing her ass and she's all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, you dropped 3/4 of an inch in your glutes, and that's it. I was like, you're not. You said you're just getting tighter. You're getting firmer. Your butt's actually sitting up higher, and your waistline's getting smaller. So your proportions are getting better. You're looking better every single day, and they're insecure about it.
That's definitely it's happened for sure, where people are saying things. I'm like, is this a direct reflection on me or someone else? And it's so difficult, especially in this sport where you are strutting your stuff in a two-piece bikini on stage, and the name of the
Yes.
game is to get judged, right?
Yeah.
Like that is the name of the game, and that's what I'm saying. Like, it is a part of the sport. I came into the sport with very thin skin, no pun intended.
Yeah.
Like could not take feedback without taking it directly as a personal attack. Like, this is something that bodybuilding has really helped me with, of like, there are opinions, there's feedback, there's one show that you show up and you get fifth, and then the next week and you show up and win and get an Olympia qualification.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you never know. And so that's why it's just really important to focus on who was on stage that day, what did you look like, learn,
Yeah,
pivot, learn, and pivot. And that's all you can do. That's it.
that's right.
That's all you can do.
That's right. And it's just, it's always a mental game because you are not being judged on the amount of work that you put in, right? You're being judged on what you look like, period. So
Yeah. And
I'm like,
everybody
when,
has opinions. And that's why I
yeah,
think when you trust a source, like Jamie is my source of opinion. If she
yeah,
says something, that's what I'm writing with. Now, if I went to another coach and said, "Hey, what do you think? What's your opinion?" They would have something completely different. Now, as an
right.
athlete, that gets confusing. So you have to understand then too, like, don't ask, don't put too many hands in your own cookie jar. It's only going to make you even more confused. Figure out
Yep.
who you trust the most and ride that feedback and
Yeah.
ride whatever that change is. And
Yeah.
that's why Jamie and I have been so successful. Like, of course, there's been noise. Of course, there's people who told me what we do is wrong. Of course, there's been all of this since I've started. But I trust Jamie. And at the
That's
end of
right.
the day, I follow the plan. And if the plan is executed and it doesn't turn out the way we want to, all right, well, then we learn and we move forward. It also makes me a better coach too. Like,
Yeah.
that's always the things that I try to think about is like, if this situation didn't go well for me, how can I learn from this and give back to other people about this? I learned a lot this weekend. There, don't go so extreme on what's happening in a look. Like, take a time to think about it. And when we were trying to figure out what to do with the look I was getting with being sick, like in hindsight 2020, I probably should have just showed up that way. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, but again,
Hmm.
everything's hindsight. You never know until it's done.
Yep.
So
Which is what's frustrating about the sport.
that's
It's like, damn it.
literally all of us backstage, we were like, why do we do this?
I know. It's
Why
so
do we do
hard.
this? But it's the thrill. Like, if it was
Yeah.
easy, none of us would do it. If there was one person winning every weekend, none of us would do it. Like, it is this constant challenge to
That's right.
keep showing up and get the feedback. And we talked about this on the Fit Body Fusion podcast, which should be coming out this week when we were talking about the Arnold recap. Like, it's 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 a moving target. It
Yeah.
really is.
It
So
always
buckle in
is.
for the ride and you're gonna lose a lot more than you win.
Yep. Well, and that's what I said too. It's like at the end of the day, we already know that the criteria shifts every year. We know that. So you can do one of two things. You can either get on the ride and embrace all the curves and the twists and the ups and downs and stuff like that, or you can get off.
You have a
Like,
choice.
yeah, what, like you're choosing to be in the sport. You're choosing to embrace the chaos. You know what I mean? So embrace it and don't complain about it. That's it. Like I said that even with myself, like as far as the shifting criteria with bikini, I never once came out and complained and said that I don't, I'm pissed off that I don't fit the criteria. Like that's not what I'm doing. I'm like, I'm putting myself in this position. So I'm like, I'm gonna either embrace the fact that these are the things I gotta do in order to get better, or I'm just not gonna get better, period. Like, why
Right.
am I gonna sit here and complain about it? You know?
And that's one of my
So
favorite like thoughts of the book The Champion Mind is like the power of that choice. We have
yeah.
the power to choose how we're going to respond to that situation or how we're going to feel about that situation. Like,
Mhm.
we have that choice. There's
That's right.
power in that. So you're allowed to feel upset. Drew said that on the podcast as well. Like, I would be upset if my athlete was not upset about losing. That means that
Right.
it doesn't mean
They don't
something to
care.
them, right?
Yes.
You're allowed as a human to be
Yep.
upset about the placing and to want more for yourself.
Mhm.
But you also have the choice in, are you going to keep beating yourself up about it? Or are you going to take the emotion and go, I don't want to feel like this again. How do I get
Right.
better and how do I learn? And
Right.
that's where I keep challenging myself. And I'm in a really good mental headspace. It would be different, I think, for me if they didn't see the improvements and I had so
Yeah.
much to fix, but because they said, oh my God, like, she's fixed everything we've told her to do, just show up in the right conditioning. To me, that's easy. That
Right.
of course I wanted to show my best on an Arnold stage, but I did show my best. It was
Oh,
by
you
far
did.
my best I ever did. Could it have been better? It could have, but again, nothing I could control.
That's right. And I think also, one of the things that's a blessing for you as well is that you've consistently grown a little bit better each year and not been just thrown automatically into the spotlight. Some
Yeah.
people in the sport do, like they go straight from being an amateur to a top pro and they just don't know they don't know how to handle that. Like it's not, it's hard. It's hard to all of a sudden be the face of criticism overnight, which happens to some people. It does happen to some people. I mean, it happened with Laura Lee when she first started. Like she went from being nobody to all of a sudden she won every single pro show she walked into. You know what I mean? So it happens and it's hard. It's hard to manage that. Laura Lee's a good example of somebody who has over time, embraced that and been able to improve and been able to get through that mentally. But it's a very difficult thing, and a lot of people can't. A lot of people can't work through that. I think one of the advantages that you have, one of the advantages that probably Vanya has, is that again, you guys have consistently just gotten a little bit better each year, a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. So you've had the opportunity to kind of stair step yourself into the spotlight, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah, that's a
Like I go
different
back,
perspective. And what I
yeah,
question too, because sometimes like when I'm questioning myself, I'm like, that's where the genetic comment comes from. Like I didn't rise very fast. So
yeah,
it's like, am I getting not getting looked over, but like, is my physique not really that great? Like, but I know in a healthy mind that that's not the case. I continue
right.
to get better every year. My placings get better every year. My height gets better, whatever that is. And that is a really cool perspective. It gave me time to understand what's coming, the more that I push this and give me
Hmm.
time to grow into that role. Like
Yep.
I want to be able to be a top pro and to be able to, when I retire one day, I'm never going to have the magnitude that Angelica had, but I want people to feel like I touch their lives. Like
Yeah.
that's my goal. And I don't think you can do that so new as a pro. You don't have the tools for that yet. I really do feel like I've developed some good tools for that, and of course continuing to learn every year on how to be better as myself, as an athlete, etc. So that's a really cool perspective.
Yeah. And I think like what you just said, the way that you touch people in this sport is not necessarily what you do on stage either. What we're doing here in this podcast and stuff like that touches people a whole lot deeper than a placing on stage, and again, going back to Angelica, that's where she's really made her mark. Like, yes, she's won Olympias and she's won Arnold's. Yes, absolutely. But that's not why people remember her and why they love her. There's lots of other athletes out there that have done the exact same thing and they don't have the same kind of vibe and energy around them as she does, because she gives back to the sport and her fans and all those kinds of things, and people remember her for how she made them feel. And that's what matters at the end of the day. That's what
The
matters more than
amount of
anything
people that
else.
came up to me about this podcast in the YouTube, like
Yes.
astronomical,
Yeah.
and I appreciate all of you so much. I mean, one of the girls she didn't bring it to the meet and greet. She brought it to the expo the next day when she knew I was at the Wolfpack book. She brought her Champions Mind book for me to sign and wrote me a handwritten card. Like, that means everything,
Yeah.
and it's those moments that I'm going to remember the most in a year. I'm not going to remember, whatever. It's those moments, and I know we're making an impact, and so that's how I want to
Yeah.
send it, by saying thank you all so much, to those of
Absolutely.
you that watch this, and the love, the encouragement, the people that come up to Shawn and I and say thank you for the podcast. Like, this
Yeah.
takes a lot for Shawn and I. Like, this
It
has been
does.
once a week, every week since we started, and we do
Uh-huh.
it because we hear from you, and
That's right.
we know it means something to you. So I just want to say thank you guys so much for that, because it really does make a difference for us, and we want to keep showing up, and we want to keep making that impact for you guys. I mean, even
Yeah.
Wendy Fortino was like, we love the podcast, we love how much you guys talk about what's going on in the industry and the impact. Like, those are the things that we want, Shawn and I have always strive to do, is educate and inspire. Like,
That's
those
right.
that we've always said, those are two biggest things.
That's right. Absolutely. And it's you're right. It's for every critic out there, there's four other people that we're impacting in a positive manner, that take some sort of inspiration from this, that find some sort of motivation from it, get something that helps them in their life or their career or their time on stage or whatever it may be, but they grab something from this that helps them become better. And that's what we want. Like that's what we focus on. If we didn't do that, we would never have gotten to seven to what 80, 70 episodes. Are we 70? We're at 70. We never would have gotten to 70 episodes if we focused on the critics. We never would have gotten to 70
We
episodes
wouldn't
if
be
we
here.
focused on critics. That's right. We focus on those of you that we know are in it with us,
Yeah.
that are here to, like, again, they came up to me at the meet and greet. It cracks me up whenever we're at the meet and greet. I'm there to interview you guys and they're coming up to me. Can I get a picture? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I'm like, that's special. I don't take that for granted. I don't take that for granted at all. Like I really appreciate that. And I know that at the end of the day, those are the people that really matter as far as what we are doing and why we continue to do this. If it weren't for them, probably I've been in this sport for 18 years. I would have quit 17 years ago.
Yeah. And those are the people that truly root for us,
Yeah.
and want us to keep showing up. When I made that statement on YouTube, like, weeks ago, people were like, I've been watching, Behind the Bikini forever. Like, we believe in you. Like, we don't believe,
Yes,
like, that is everything. They really do
absolutely.
cheer for us and root us on, and to your point too, Shawn, like, people are going up to Nikki, my content curator, at the meet and greet, and they're like, oh my God, thank you. Like, that's the
Yeah,
stuff that is amazing. Like, the people that pay attention, and to the people around me that have helped me, like going up to Nikki and saying thank you, like going up to you, like, it's just, that's the cool shit. That's the shit I live
it made
for.
me laugh. I don't know if they did this with you, but I've mentioned this on the podcast before. I'm like, I tell people if they come to see me, show me your Instagram handle or your YouTube handle so I
Yes.
can put face. Everybody was doing that. They were like prepared with their handles. So I was like, oh no, I can put two and two together. I know who you are, you
It
know?
does. It really makes it easy because we notice, like, when people are
Yeah.
liking our stuff, we're like, oh, that's a name that likes my stuff a lot. And then
Yep.
they show, and I'm like, oh, I know exactly who you are. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
that is, and the girl that wrote me the card, she wrote her Instagram on the
I
bio. And I was
love
like,
that.
oh,
I
yeah, I
love
know
that.
who this girl is. Like, that's so cool. Like, to put that face to the name. I know Amy was talking about one of her people too that came up to her at the meet and greet, and they had met over the last couple of years, at the Arnolds, so to be able to see each other again, like, uh,
Yes.
that's the special part.
It absolutely is. It's so much fun. So,
Yeah.
oh, another Arnold is coming on. It's so sad because I love that show so much. And I'm just like, oh, we got to wait a whole nother year.
I know.
Damn
My
it.
heart's so full. So,
I
so
know.
full. It's like, it's bittersweet, but mostly like my heart is so full,
Yeah.
from the
Yeah.
weekend. I'm sad it's over. I'm
I
sad about
know.
the placing, but whatever. I'm just I would rather want more than want it to be over, and I
Absolutely.
left wanting more. So
Absolutely.
it will not be my last one, hopefully.
Absolutely not. And regardless, I mean, even if you don't compete there, go, and
Yeah.
experience it as
Oh,
a
for
fan.
sure.
I love experiencing it. I mean, I have to admit, being that I get to experience it as media and being able to be in the front row to all this stuff is pretty freaking sweet. I'm just saying, um, it's a little bit better than being stuck in the nosebleeds. You know what I mean? But I love
Petition
experiencing it.
Shawn to be a commenter on the Arnold.
Oh, I know, I know, I know. And but it's just I will say this too. Sid Gillen was the commentator for the women for the live stream, and she did a phenomenal job. So I
I've
just want
heard
to put
that.
that out there. She
I
did a
haven't seen
phenomenal
it, but
job.
I've heard it.
I've seen bits and pieces. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I've seen bits and pieces. She did her research. She actually sounded intelligent and put together. So I'm very, very pleased with the job that she
Good.
did. As again, going back to, we just need more strong women in this industry, period. And she did a phenomenal job. So
Good job,
I do want
Sid.
to give her, yeah, I do want to give her a
Shout out to
shout out for
Sid.
that. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I will take that every day of the week.
Taking her
So
retirement strides very well.
that's
she's,
right.
she's like, I'm not on that
Absolutely.
stage. I'm going to comment on those girls
That's
on stage
right.
because
That's
they
right.
need it.
Keep these
Yes.
boys in check. Keep these
Yeah.
boys in
Thank
check,
you,
man.
Sid. Thank
Whew.
you.
Yes. But yeah, so going back to just be experiencing it as a fan too is a lot is a blessing as well. So if you've never been, we've said it enough that we've hyped this show enough that you should get your tickets at this point. Go lock down your hotel and your flights and all that kind of stuff and go next year.
Drew and I are like, as soon as the tickets come out, like,
Yeah.
we always buy two because, well, it's different at the Arnold because you are guaranteed the night show stage, but like the tickets, like, get good seats
Yeah.
too because that room is huge. So
Yeah, it is.
yeah.
It is. So with that, we have full days ahead. So I'm going to let you get to your clients. I got to get to mine, and we'll get this rolling. But yeah, this kind of kicks off the season for real. And
Yeah. Here we go.
it's gonna be, yeah, I know it's gonna be a ride. It's gonna be a ride. As always, it's always a
Buckle
ride. It's gonna
up.
be a ride. This is what keeps us addicted to this sport. 'Cause it's always something. It's always
Yeah.
something.
I'm actually
So
leaving right now to go do a travel meeting with Jamie and Drew
love
to
it.
figure out our
Love
travel.
it.
That's what we're doing. So
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, hopefully I'll see you soon.
yes.
If not, but probably before May for Pittsburgh. But yeah, with that, we'll be back again with Behind the Bikini next week anyway. So I'll see you here. We didn't know what to do. We didn't know what to do with ourselves when we were in person. We're like,
I know. We're like, dude, this is much more comfortable.
I know, right?
This is normal. Not that I don't love being right next to you, but
This is really, we got this. This we can do. We've been doing this for
yes.
2 years now. This we can do this, right?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Depends on the day.
Yeah. So with that, you guys, thank you so much again for all of your support. We loved meeting all of you in person as well. Make sure you give us comments, share, like, subscribe, all of the things we say every week because we really appreciate all of the support. Oh, and I want to give a shout out to Liquid Sunrise. I got to do that too because they did sponsor the Arnold coverage for us this past weekend. So
Aw.
without them, we
Thanks,
wouldn't
Mama
be
Race.
here, right? Yeah, yeah. Without them, we wouldn't be here. So hit them up. Cuties15 is the discount code for you right there. And with that, for Behind the Bikini in episode 70, we're out. Bye, guys.